Hi, it's Ian, and welcome back to my 30 Days of Taiko Skills. Today is day 20, and I'm talking about G patterns. In Japan, it might be called jiuchi. Before I get there, though, today is day 20, and I'm two-thirds of the way through this campaign of this video series. And I would like to thank, once again, everyone who has made a donation. I really do appreciate it, and thank you very much for your kindness. And there's still 10 more days of this, so if you're still thinking about it, or if you're able to help share this page so that more people can check it out, and if they're able to help support the cause of supporting this Donference conference at Asano Taiko US in December. So thank you very much. Okay, so G patterns. I think it depends on the definition of G patterns, tends to depend on the context at which you'd find it. So in this case, if we're talking about more modern ensemble taiko playing styles, typically the G pattern is something that's happening as an underlying rhythm. It would be usually played underneath a solo or a melodic part or some main part. Oftentimes you would hear it being played on shimedaiko or some other smaller drum, or maybe on a smaller percussion instrument such as the atarigane, or maybe on the backside of the odaiko if there's two people playing on each side of the odaiko. Maybe whoever's not playing a solo or the main part might be playing a G pattern. So to me, there are not really a limited number of types of G patterns. I think there are a few that are quite common in kumidaiko repertoire, but it doesn't mean that we can't, write new material and come up with our own new G patterns. So I think the definition can be pretty wide as far as what constitutes as a G pattern, as long as it's, to me, it's an accompaniment pattern that helps to support the time and the groove, and is the supporting role, which is equally important as the main role, meaning the melody or a soloist. They're both equally important, but volume-wise, you might hear it less. The G pattern might be less than the main part. Sometimes, if that's not taken into consideration, if the G player is playing too loud, then we lose that melody or the main part, and that can be an issue of just balance, or the soloist too. That can happen as well. So it's always, to be a good G player, I think we have to think of our role as an accompanist and always be mindful of what our role is and how we're trying to support other parts. So I'll go over a few different G patterns that are common and demonstrate a few things that I tend to practice. So the first one is maybe the simplest one. Just goes, if it's shimedaiko, it would go teke, 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 teke. Just simple, kind of straight eighth note feel. Alternated sticking, right, left, right, left. If I was to incorporate some other techniques while I was practicing this, maybe I would tap my foot. Teke, 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 teke. If you're practicing a larger drum, kuchishoga, doko, 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 doko. So in this case, maybe I'll try to improvise a solo. So as I play the G pattern here, I will just sing some improvised rhythms and see if I'm able to have that independence of singing various rhythms over this simple G pattern. Let me give it a shot here. Take it, take it. Don, su don, ka, don, stone, don, sto, don, ka, don, sto, don, don. Ka, doko, doko, don, stone, don, ska, ka, don, tsuku, don, den, don, stone, don, ka, don, ka, kara, ka, sto, don, stone, don, ka, don, ka, don, stone, don, ka, 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 doko, doko, don. Okay, so I could also add another layer of difficulty by putting on a metronome, and then I would try to make sure my foot tapping and the metronome beat would be on, and then let my hands follow that, and then on top of that, try to keep my improvising consistent tempo-wise. So maybe some of those combinations between my voice and the G pattern I was playing, they might be a little bit tricky. So a good thing is to just start very simple. Maybe just do the don, 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 don. Maybe do don, 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 don. Maybe do sut, don, something like this. Don, 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 don. Don, 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 sut, don, sut, don, sut, don, sut, don. So something like that, keeping it simple, do some repetition until you feel comfortable, and then you would add a little bit more complexity at a time. Of course, to me, anything you play right-handed, we should also practice left-handed for the sake of balance. So we could do the same exact approach and exercise, just play teke teke starting with the left like this. Teke 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 teke. Okay? Second common G pattern, we hear this all the time. Ten teke, ten teke, ten teke, ten teke. So I'll do the same thing. For me, this rhythm, the foot goes on the ten and not the teke. That's how I feel this G pattern in general. So I'll try the same thing. Play this G pattern, tap my foot, and then try to improvise a solo over that with my voice. Ka, don, stone, stone, don, ka, stone, don, ka, don, jan, jan, sto, don, kara, kara, ka, don, stone, don, sto, don, ka, sto, don, ka, don, ska, ka, sto, don, tsuku, tsuku, don, tsuku, ka, stone, don. Okay, a little bit more difficult because I'm playing a little extra beat there. Again, same thing. It would be good to practice this G pattern left-handed for the sake of balance. Left, left, right, left, left, right. Ten, teke, ten, teke, ten, teke, ten, teke. Okay. Another one that's very, very common would be a combination of the first and second one. It would go ten, teke, ten, 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 teke, ten, 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 teke, ten, 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 teke, ten, ten. We can play this more straight like I sang it just now, or maybe a little bit closer in the style of the tradition of Bon Taiko, or the music of the Bon Odori, where in that case you might play a little bit more like ten teke ten 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 teke ten 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 teke ten ten teke ten ten. So accent on the first one, and then a half accent on the pickup going into the first hit like this. Ten teke ten 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 teke ten 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 teke ten ten teke ten 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 teke ten ten. So I'm playing basically 3 different levels of accent, semi-accent, and then softer hits in between. I think it makes a lot of sense here to try to vocalize using different strengths, or in my case, I'm trying to use some pitch difference. Ten, teke, ten, 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 teke, ten, 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 teke, ten, 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 teke, ten, ten, ten. Trying to feel those different levels so that I have forward motion. So I think you can probably easily hear the difference between trying to play it very flat or adding these inflection points in terms of giving a sense of depth and sense of kind of forward motion to this groove. I'll try to go back and forth between the straight one and adding that the accent pattern. Okay, so part of being a good accompanist, of course, is to create this sense of forward motion or kind of groove-oriented, a human feel that that makes people want to move or tap their foot. That's a very important part of it. So whatever we can do to create that, there's no one rule that will make it work. But I think in terms of groove, the more consistent we are, meaning every time you play those accents, they sound similar each time, and the spacing is the same each time, even if our tempo or our pulse is not metronomically perfect the entire time. I don't think that's a huge issue as long as it's pretty close. It's in the ballpark. The idea is our spacing consistent each time? And I don't necessarily mean it's perfect in terms of a computer dividing up a beat into perfect subdivisions. It's more like even if there's some kind of a lilt, for example, if you listen to samba drumming, a lot of times there's this lilt that it sounds like they're playing 16th notes, but with some notes closer together, some notes farther apart. So technically those, you would say those subdivisions are not even. However, each time they play that grouping, it's the same feeling over and over and over. So that keeps that sense of groove and forward motion, that consistent feel throughout a number of measures gives you this kind of feeling of wanting to tap your foot and move to that beat. So there's all different ways to kind of interpret what it means to have a consistent feel. But a good starting point, of course, is to try to divide the beat equally and be consistent so that we can have a good start at that. Another one that's very common is the shuffle beat. Tek, ke, 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 tek, ke. Dokko, 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 dokko. Okay? So this one too, we would do right hand lead and left hand lead. In addition to that, maybe we could try a few different concepts for accenting and see how that changes the feeling of this. We could also change the feeling by playing around with that swung note, the te ke. The placement of the ke could be a perfect third triplet, or it could be a little bit later, or it could be a little bit earlier. That can change the feeling of the groove. But let's start with the concept of trying different accent patterns. So first we'll be accenting on only the te, or the downbeat. And then we'll try accenting only the ke. And then we'll try even. Okay? So to me, they all feel very different. There's different maybe descriptors we could use to say this one feels like this, but this one feels like this, and this one feels like this. Right now, I'm exaggerating the differences quite a bit. We could make it a little bit more subtle, and it might work really well in different pieces. So in one piece, maybe the first one works well. In another piece, maybe the second one works better. So, of course, we need to have control of our accents and non-accents. And to get that control, we could practice these with a lot of exaggeration like this. And also do left-handed. Same thing on the upstroke one, accent. And then left-handed. Okay. So some of these ideas, I think it just comes down to trying to get a consistent feel, trying to get a consistent stroke, and practicing these parts so that you have more control. And hopefully, by having better stick control and better rhythmic accuracy and consistency, when you get to a real musical situation, you can start to listen more and adjust your parts so that it's the best accompaniment part possible in that situation. So Anyway, a little bit about G patterns. I could go on and on about this topic, but hopefully there's something useful in there for you, and I'll see you on the next one.